Good evening. So tonight we are presenting, or I am presenting from Adelaide, South Australia again, to be able to help with this campaign of Let's Talk About Ice. I'm coming as a volunteer from the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign. Tonight I'm going to be talking to a lovely gentleman called Rob from here in South Australia. But firstly, just a few little housekeeping. Just for anyone that is needing support, there is a family support line in which you can call, which is 04818 44555. That number again is 04818 44555. And there's also the Australian Anti-Say No to Ice hotline, which you can call 24/7, and that number is 1800 66 86 423. That again is 1800 66 86 423. So anyone that is experiencing addiction, or even family members that need some more help around addiction, give us a call. We have a multitude of people in every state these days to be able to help in every which way. So tonight, as I mentioned, I'm talking to the lovely Mr. Rob. And how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I just wanted to reread what I asked Rob to send a couple of short sentences to me in terms of his actual drug addiction. And just to start it off, this is what I have entitled the earlier promo on, and I'll just repeat it so that we can start getting into it. Awesome. I asked him to give a couple of sentences about, to sum up what he went through, and his response was this. At the time, I was married, a gym owner, and a very successful personal trainer. I also competed as a bodybuilder whilst using, and I don't think that anyone would have known other than my circle of friends. So, Rob, in that case then, how did you end up getting into drugs? Like, what happened? Obviously, you were very successful. You had everything that you wanted, obviously. Why the progression into drugs?
It's interesting. It probably stems right back. I think I've always been a fairly driven person. I was obviously ex-military. During my military service, I actually had a son that passed away. That was where the impact come from, or the trauma, I suppose. And I used recreational drugs probably from that time onwards. I got out the army, obviously pursued a career as a personal trainer, ended up opening up a gym, and still using recreational drugs. It was never a problem. A little bit of coke, some MDMA, some stuff like that to go out and drink and just have fun with. And I just found going out and being around people that were having a good time just made me forget about my own shit that was going on inside. So it was a lovely distraction at the time. And how ice actually came about, it was never something that I chose. A friend at the time, we were just getting ready for a Melbourne Cup one day, and we're having a couple of lines and a couple of drinks, as you do, to just get dressed in the suit and out you go. And he pulled out a pipe and packed it and sat there and smoked it in front of me, and it was like, oh wow. And I suppose what took my interest is it actually looked clean. It looked like it was easier than snorting stuff up your nose and having to have that shit that you have to put up with for the next couple of days. And I don't know what attracted me to it. I just thought, if he's having it, then it's obviously okay. It's someone that I trust. They're a friend of mine, and he just gave it to me. And I suppose the rest is history. From that very first moment of taking something that was obviously a lot stronger than MDMA and coke and stuff like that, it was just, I was just like, fucking wow. It was amazing. And I suppose back then, we're talking probably like 10 years ago. I'm not sure what's around now. I haven't been in the scene, but it was quite good. It was made properly the way it was supposed to be made, and always was the way it was intended. So highly addictive. And obviously, because my circle of friends were all taking it at the time, it became socially acceptable within my group of friends that was something that we did recreationally. I was never a everyday person, but it was probably got to the point where it was every weekend at least, and then that would flow over into like a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday. I didn't get back to work Thursday kind of scenario. So I think I used it because, again, it was just escaping, my own shit. which I eventually, once coming off of ice and stuff, I went and seen a psychologist and worked my way through. And I'm strong to the point now where that I probably wouldn't want that back in my life again. It's not something I think about anymore, but it's easy to draw the dots as to why people are addicted to anything. I mean, if they're not handling what's going on, we can be addicted to anything. We can overeat food, we can drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, we can be addicted to porn and sex, gambling, whatever it may be. That's not any different from ice, except for obviously it probably has more of an impact on your life than what, say, drinking a bottle of wine every night would, or gambling away $500 at the pokies every week. It would probably, ice just has a very, very strong addiction to it. And obviously it impacts your life in all areas of your life. It's actually like, it has a massive negative effect on the other side. So I suppose that's just a snippet of where it was thrown in and introduced to me. Being ex-military and obviously normally very, very highly driven and stuff, I was able to use and nobody would have known. Like, yes, you felt like shit coming down for 3-4 days and fucking Suicide Tuesday and all the rest of it flowed on from there. But I suppose you were able to hold it all together until you couldn't hold it all together. And then I lost my marriage, lost my gym, and it all come like crumbling down. I suppose I didn't realize that it was having an impact in the background without seeming like it was making an impact. But I suppose if you're out on the weekend, you're spending money on drugs, you're out gambling, you're watching porn, addicted to sex, you're texting other women, you're doing all the stuff that normally in a normal mind you wouldn't do. On that stuff, it kind of lowers all your inhibitions and everything's possible, So,
of course,
the same thing that you would do sober, you wouldn't do on day 2 from, smoking crack for the weekend. So it just is what it is, we all, I suppose, don't mean to get to where I got to, where it's actually having a really dramatic effect on your life. It's no one's intention, I know, to fuck up their life, basically. But I suppose it does, and it wrecks families and it ruins you financially and it has a really negative health effect, mentally and physically as well. I'm just glad that I was able to pull it in, when I did, and I had a really good support people around me when I chose to pull away, which is difficult because you've got to pull away from all your circle of friends. You've got to pull away from the people where that behavior is acceptable and go and start again. And that can be a really fucking lonely place, like a really, really lonely place. So
definitely. I think that's one of the hardest things to actually overcome coming through addiction, is just how lonely it actually is. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the biggest barriers in which addicts face into not continuing to stay on their clean journey, purely because of how isolating, how depressive it is. And you've also got that, the lack of chemicals, because it takes a long time for your brain to actually readjust after you've been using. Say it takes close to 18 months, 2 years, for those normal healthy chemicals in your brain to actually reestablish itself, and for your dopamine uptake inhibitors and all the rest of it to be able to actually function properly, and for your body to be producing the right amounts of hormones for you to be able to be feeling normal. So unfortunately, it does take a long time. I'm so sorry to hear that. It is a common story. But one of the other reasons why I wanted to talk to you about as well is purely because I identified with myself that for the first few years of my own addiction, I was quite closet. It was only a couple of people that would have known about it, a small friendship circle. And it wasn't outwardly seen as, as an addiction or anything. It was only because of my ex that things came to light, and that's when it spiraled. But there's this notion of, I've met so many people that were similar to me and have been similar to you, that you are quite respected in the community. You hold jobs, you have businesses, you have money and all the rest of it. Obviously, a lot of the behaviours and all the rest of it are, negative and destructive to your own family and lifestyle. But there is a lot that goes on that people don't actually realise, that is in every class, every social structure of society in which people are still using this drug.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to really chat to you, because I thought, well, we'll pick your brains about this, because, you know, this is, you know, something, yeah. So, I mean, like, realistically, I mean, if it hadn't have been for your friend that day, do you think you still would have had that progression towards it? Like, it would have come out at some stage? And
yeah, no, go on.
Yeah, and if so, like, why is it that you still? I mean, I guess no one wants to, you know, stand on their rooftop and scream, "I'm an addict and I'm taking drugs," or a particular ice. But why did you still? Why was it still so closed in terms of your close knit friendship group circle? And why was it not outwardly spoken?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why I'm coming out now and outwardly speaking about it. That's part of the problem, you know, is that it has such a negative connotation that it would just be frowned upon. If I went to my mum and dad and said that I'm smoking ice, that's not really a conversation that I ever want to have. There's so much shame and guilt around that particular drug, rather than them knowing I might have the pill every now and then, or rack a couple of lines of coke at a wedding or whatever like that, is a lot more socially acceptable, and it's kind of cool to do that. Whereas as soon as you bring up ice, it is a different conversation altogether. You can see people, you know, pull back, and it make you feel like you're dirty and like worthless, and that, I suppose, is what we need to talk about, because you're right, it does affect everybody. You know, there would be judges and police officers and everything that would, you know, people that are high in the community, within every workforce or whatever, that would actually be addicted to ice, and you don't know about it. It's because it's just hidden. Like, no one wants to talk about it. Everyone wants to blame, you know, all the people in the lower socioeconomic classes, and that's actually not true. You know, it's just, it wants to just push it to that problem so that nobody has to address it. And yeah, that's just bullshit. And I suppose I see myself as a leader of men in the community. I've kind of been down that road and been down to rock bottom and built myself, you know, back up to someone. And I see my role in speaking my truth and saying, hey, you know, we all make mistakes, you know, and it doesn't have to end there. And if you can find a way, you know, to pull yourself away, and you really want to like move on with your life, and that's not something you want to continue with, then, you know, you can, because I did, and I know lots of other people that are working their way back towards not having, you know, ice impact their life anymore. And I think sometimes you need to try something to know whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? And there's so many things I love about ice. There's more, and I always say, what's the pros and cons list? So the pros list was sex was amazing, and fucking it was made all of my problems go away, and all these kind of things.
Temporary. Temporary. Yeah.
That's the attraction to it. It gives you the connection with your partner and stuff. You're both like high, and you can just, you know, it's fucking, that's amazing. That's part of the drug. That is why it's highly addictive. You know, it gives you that connection that you're after. But like you said, it's temporary. You can be totally disconnected for 2 weeks afterwards because your energy levels are low, and you're narky and angry at each other because you're coming down, and it's like, it's horrible. Like, it isn't a way to seek connection. It isn't a way to escape from your pain, trauma, all the stuff that you're doing it for. I suppose we don't meaningly do it. We just do it as an escape. Some people might just sit down on their phone all day and just be like, let the kids play in the background. It's fucking too much. That's a form of escapism as well. It doesn't matter what you're escaping and how you're doing it. That's really what's playing out. And until you're willing to go, you know, and face your shit and work through the root cause of the actual problem, the root cause of why you're using, or why you're escaping your life, and why you feel the need to fill a void of unhappiness and unworthiness, or whatever it may be for you, that's really where you need to pour all of your time and attention. You know, chasing the dragon and chasing that high constantly, and whatever is not going to lead you there. You know, that's only going to lead to pain. And trust me, it leads to pain. I lost everything, you know, had to start from the bottom and work my way back up. And like I said before, you have to try it to know whether you like it. I've tried it, and it's something that I'll never introduce into my life again. people ask about other recreational drugs and stuff. It's like, if you're at a wedding, would you, have you gone totally sober? It's like, well, maybe not. Someone had a line in the toilet or whatever. Maybe I would. I just think you need to draw your own dots, and, it should not be any shame around what is and isn't okay for you, I suppose. But if what you're doing is, causing you pain, and your life is not progressing and going forwards and only backwards, and you're losing friends and family, relationships, money, like, it's just, there comes a point in time where the only person responsible for getting yourself back out of that's going to be you. There's no magic person's going to walk in and just be like, hey, you're actually smoking too much shit, like, stop it. Like, no one will do that. There's going to be no Romeo Juliet situation where someone's just going to come in and rescue you. It's you've got to be able to be strong enough to do that on your own. And I suppose if you're not strong enough to do it on your own, that's where you need to reach out. Like, because there are the people out there that, like us, have been through it and come out the other side, and we emphasize. We're not going to judge you. It's part of the reason for me coming on here and speaking my truth is, like, if I speak my truth, people can say whatever the hell they want to say about me. There's nothing that they can hold against me that isn't something I've already been honest and truthful about as part of my past before. So part of it is also forgiving myself. I'm on here taking the shame away so I don't have to sit there and hate that part of me and hate that part of my life, because there's so many beautiful lessons in that part of my life. And, I had fun. Absolutely had heaps of fun with heaps of people that at the time I wanted to have fun with. So I suppose you need to honor those parts. You need to forgive those parts. And you need to be in a space where you're open to be able to work out what the root cause of why you ended up, down the road that you didn't want to go down. But again, now you've been down that road and it's not for you, then it's really a choice whether you stay there or not. You can go back out the other side and say, well, that's not something I want to entertain, like, ever again, and put a healthy boundary in place for yourself and just honor yourself and just follow through on that. There's a lot in there, like, there's a lot to do. But I suppose if you want to do the work, there's also a lot of support there for you. There's a lot of love around you that you're not seeing, that you're blocking out. There's a lot of people that would like to help you, that have noticed little things that you might not think they've noticed. They notice. My mum and dad knew, my relationship knew, my work colleagues knew. I thought they didn't know, but they knew, because the energy that you're showing up in is different. I can't rock up to work on Thursday and pretend that nothing happened on the weekend, and because you're not. You smell like shit. Your skin's pasty. You're like got no energy. You're like just vibrating like so low. Compared to when you come in and you're full of energy and you've slept and you've eaten well and you're looking after yourself, it's a completely different way to show up in the world. So if you think people aren't noticing, they are. And they're also, unfortunately, in the mental health game, we're always too scared to go and ask someone because we're simply afraid that they're going to turn around and say, actually, yesterday I thought about taking my own life. And then it's like, oh, what do I do now? And that conversation has to get better. That's the conversation that we all don't want to have. If my kid runs across the street and falls over and cuts their leg open, I'm not the person that's going to put the stitches in. No, I'm going to take them to the hospital and get that done by a professional. And we need to look at mental health like that also. Like, if you notice that your friend is just, lost, disconnected, not turning up to work, turning up late, relationships, spending all their money, if you can see those things, you don't have to be the person that fixes it. Even if they're talked about committing suicide or whatever it may be, like, you just know that you don't have to be the person that fixes it, but you could be the person that walks by their side and gets them the help that they need. And imagine how good that would feel. And imagine how that would feel for them, for you to approach them, not to them to have to reach rock bottom to reach out to you. Like, how empowering would it? I didn't have anyone like that. I had to pull myself out of that shit, and I had to get to rock bottom to want to do it. You don't have to get to rock bottom. There's people there. If I'd reached out, I would have had the love and support there. I just didn't. As a man, there's a lot of shame and guilt about your behavior and your own situation, to reaching out to your own parents and asking for money, for reaching out to friends and family and saying, I haven't paid my rent, I'm going to get kicked out of my house. Like, can I have somewhere to live? Like, but again, getting on here tonight, getting rid of the shame and guilt, forgiving myself for what I didn't know at the time. And I know now. I've been down that road, and I can honestly say it's not something I'd ever introduce back into my life again. But I can only say that because I've actually been there. It's like sleeping with multiple partners before you get married. I've already tried other things. I know that I can make that commitment. Whereas you get into that commitment, childhood sweethearts, at 35, you start wondering whether that's the love of your life or not. And then, there's problems and stuff everywhere. Just know that there's no right and wrong, and just realize that, where you're at, you are only one step away from making like a massive difference to being able to, step forwards and don't let that downward spiral until you get to rock bottom, because it's a choice. It's a choice to stay there. And you have to own that, unfortunately. I didn't choose well and make good choices. So learn from our mistakes, But if you're struggling on your own, reach out to other people like us that have actually walked through and come out the other side. Because we've been through it, we have empathy and non-judgment to your actual personal circumstance. And I think that's super important. How could I go to my parents and say, I need, this is what's happening? They have no understanding of what's happening. It's, that's difficult. It's difficult conversations to have with people, especially when there's such a negative, as soon as you mention the word ice, it's different. And it's
negative connotations weren't just good. Yeah.
It just shouldn't be any addiction. If I was to overeat every day and end up obese and die from a heart attack, it's having an impact on my life, both physically and mentally at the same time. If I was just, gambling all my money away and lost my house or whatever, yes, that's another addiction. That's going to cause me some mental and physical pain. It's just, for some reason, the conversation around this, and kudos to you for doing this and reaching out to people like us who, you've done some work with, and a little bit of our background, and that ICE was a part of that, and must have been brave to reach out to us to go, do you actually want to just get in front of everyone and tell your story? It's all day I've been thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? But, I trust that, for me to step forward into leadership roles within, especially the men's community, and going to speak to teenage boys and stuff I'm going to have no respect in that group of people unless I'm honest and truthful about some of the struggle that I've been through, because people will naturally be like, well, I'll go and speak to him because he's actually been through it. That's lived experience. I can go and do all the fucking therapy courses on the planet, but it's lived experience to me that makes the difference in being able to assist people to get from where you were to where you are now. And again, you don't have to be that person. You might just have to walk past that person to get them the right help, and just check in with them and just support them and love them, and no judgment, and just stand by them, just reach out and stand by them.
So do you think, even though, you obviously lost a lot, I know you lost a lot. You talk about your marriage, everything, your business, whatnot. Do you think if someone had held an intervention or been there to be able to help you out with this, do you think you might have come out of the other side a bit sooner? Or would have that been something you would have considered? Or was this something that it was only because you hit rock bottom you changed? It's
a very fucking good question. I reckon my ego at the time wouldn't have allowed it. I reckon I had to hit rock bottom. I would have told people to, walk the other way. I would have been in denial. Absolutely. I don't think that I would have been in a space to listen. I still wasn't owning my own shit, and I still wasn't taking responsibility for my behavior. So I had to hit that and lose that. And I suppose, what we're trying to do here is just stop people from, make the conversations weren't there. The awareness wasn't there in the community. The support measures weren't there. This was something that was frowned upon. You imagine someone who held, the responsibility that I had in the community saying to one of my friends or colleagues or something that actually, I smoke ice on the weekend and it's great, actually. It's not, you just hit it, because there's no way in the world that's going to be a conversation that you want to have. You're hiding it in shame, Even that on its own should have been a massive red flag to me. It's like, if I can't just share this with people, why? And it's like, well, deep down, I'm not proud of this person, you know, like this isn't the best version of me that I could possibly be. So why am I doing it? Like, I only have the awareness now. You know what I mean? I didn't have the support network around me. I didn't have the awareness. Obviously, going down my road and spending the last 5 years doing all my coaching courses, life, breathwork, meditation, all of that stuff has been, you know, I wouldn't have done all that if I didn't want to learn why I ended up where I ended up. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn so I didn't repeat it again. I didn't want to go in the same type of relationships. I didn't want to hang around the same groups of people. I had to let all that go and recreate a new ego, a new persona, a new version of me that I knew was possible, but I had to hit rock bottom to do it. I don't think I would have been in a space to listen to advice. I reckon I would have thrown it back in their face or not wanted to take responsibility for my actions at the time, which is unfortunate. But I know there's people there that are like, nope, nothing wrong with me. I'm doing just fine, actually. I'm a highly functioning addict. And it's like, there actually is no such thing.
No.
You know,
you might be able to hide it well.
Yeah.
But it's not functioning.
It's not functioning. It's like, it's not being the very best version of yourself to you, you know? And I suppose the relationship that you have with yourself, you imagine if you're not having a good relationship with yourself, how could you possibly show up in a way to be a good father, or, you know, a good son, a good role model? How are you showing up to work, you know, giving your all? You're not being the very best version of your person to not only yourself, but you're doing a disjustice to all the people around you as well. You know,
so by taking ice, how did it actually change those relationships around you? Like, what was it that was going on inside of you that, apart from the drug use, that would change those relationships? Like, I trying to explain to people, you know, how it actually physically changes you, and you can't have those mental, you know, you're not mentally there, you're not emotionally there. How would you put it in words to trying to explain to people how it is that you actually function in the way in which your relationships actually are once you're actually on the ice?
I think my relationship only functioned because my partner at the time was doing it with me. It's easy to just fall into that trap, you know, when you're actually like, you know, helping each other. You're not helping each other, but you're kind of like making it okay. There was no one around me that kind of was. There were people around me that weren't doing it, that didn't know. But you just hid that from them, you know, like you probably knew, you know, but I think you're just not there. Like, you're not there when you're on it. You're off with the fairies, completely disconnected to yourself and the rest of the world. You think you're connected, but you're actually really disconnected. And, you know, afterwards, like the come down, I mean, that's just horrible, you know. And I suppose it gets to the point where people are just like, I'm just going to have a little bit before I go to work, actually, because the come down is worse than staying on it. And I suppose that's where I was. The people around me become like everyday users. You know, they had gone that way, and it had become that acceptable that, and that's when I realized that I have to get out. You know, I have to make some changes here for myself and get out of that relationship and push people away in order to, you know, clean up my shit. Like, I knew I had to, and I just felt horrible all the time. You know, in your own body, you know, like you wake up and you got no energy, like your skin just feels like shit. Like you just, it's horrible. Like there's not a nice feeling on the come down. And to be honest, after you've taken it for a while, there isn't even really that nicer, like, you know, up. It's just, it is what it is, you know. You don't, that first hit that you get when you first started trying it, you'll never get that ever again.
Out the window. Yeah. No matter how much you take, no matter how often, it doesn't matter.
You can chase that for years and never get that same level of high again, because your body obviously just adjusts to that level of usage. It just doesn't work the way it used to work. But it's still having the negative effect on you, even though you're taking it in order to chase that high. Like it just, it won't happen, you know?
The only thing that grew for me, yeah, sorry, you continue.
No, that's all right. I'm fine.
So the only thing that grew for me, myself, with taking drugs is the actual emptiness and physicality that I felt inside. And it was so empty, and it just kept growing bigger and bigger, to the point where you actually just can't stand it anymore, and the whole mental health kicks in, and that's when there's so many more mental health issues and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So in saying that as well, obviously, you know, a big part of the AIC, their work is to be able to educate on the drug. We do a lot of education in schools, etc., to be able to, you know, give the risks and all of the rest of it, to be able to try and stop the kids and the next generation coming through trying this stuff. But I realise there's a lot more that needs to be done around the stigma surrounding it, as well as societal changes and norms in the respect of how people deal with it, how people look at it. You know, one of the big things is, unfortunately, because it is a lot of aggression on the actual drug itself. So many people aren't interested in stepping in or being involved purely because of the ramifications for themselves. But how do you think that, apart from, you know, doing things like this, how do you think that we can start to bridge the gap, to be able to, you know, bridge that gap, so that people are more aware, so that there are more interventions being held, so that we are standing next to people that are walking through it and saying, hey, come on, there is a better way. I'm here to help you and to help you through it. How do we do that as individuals, as coaches, as, you know, society?
We just need to stop being a bunch of judgmental fucks. You know what I mean? And that's just what we are. We think that we're perfect, and we can just sit there and judge another individual for how they're coping with what's going on with them at the time. And we need to humanize that. We need to forgive people. We need to show them empathy and support and love, you know, for who they are and not where they currently are. We need to see people in their greatness. I truly believe we all do that. I truly believe we have that in all of us. It's just applying that, and putting that into practice to really normalize, you know, this drug. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, but it's only here to stay while people use it. So, you know, the more people we educate, the less money is being made off of it, and the less people want to use it and jump on. I don't know the simple answer to that question, because I don't think there is a simple answer to that question. But I think humanizing it and showing people love and empathy, rather than sitting back and judging and pointing the finger and blaming, would make a big difference. It would obviously just be like, hey, I've noticed, you know, this behavior. I know that that's not normally you, because, you know, you're a good friend of mine, or you're someone that I look up to, and I'm not sure what's happening, but I'd love to have that conversation with you, actually, and normalize those conversations, rather than, my friend's like, just, you know, hooked on ice. And it's like, well, what are you actually going to do about that? You know, what would you like to do if you were, you know, think about, think about how nice it would be if someone was to come up and normalize that conversation, not to judge and criticize you, but just to assist you and lead you back to that, you know, the best version of yourself that you know you can be. We all know we can be, but please, it's just human nature. You know, we don't learn through anything but pain. We have to cause ourselves pain for us to go, that actually hurt, and it hurt a lot.
Not for me.
I'm not gonna, you know, we just do. And just understand, if you're in pain now, that's okay. Like, we've all been there, and we all had to learn the hard way. Like I said, if someone had approached me middle way through, when I was having the time of my life and making good money and, you know, partying every weekend, do you really think I would have listened then? Probably not. I think, you know, I was just in it, and I wouldn't have had the awareness around me. But would I have appreciated someone come in and let me know that they've noticed a decline, and maybe the version of myself that I am at the moment isn't who they see me as, and whether I'd like to have a conversation about that. And I think I would have valued that, you know, and I didn't get that from anyone around me. We really need to normalize that conversation. We need to take the shame and guilt away, because it's the same as any other form of addiction. The only reason the government hasn't like approved ice is because they can't make money off of like alcohol and cigarettes, and now they're normalizing marijuana so they can tax that as well. It's like these alcohol and cigarettes kill more people than ice do like every year, but it's allowed. You know what I mean? It's going to take some work from there downwards, you know, with government support, with systems in place, with more support measures, with more education. It's like a holistic approach. But I think a lot of it for me would have been the shame and guilt about coming forward and just admitting that I was human and I made a mistake, you know, and I need help to be able to get me back to a good version of myself that I know I am. But I don't know what that looks like because I've never had to pull myself back from an addiction before. I've never had to walk through that process. And you imagine having someone just wrap their arms or sit around you and say, bro, I've been there. It's fine. You know, have you got money? Have you got somewhere to sleep? Have you got, you know, where do we start from? And I'm going to check in on you every day. And I'm right here with you. If you feel like going back, you know, and running back to that form of escapism that you're using, then I'm here. You know, it's normalized, you know, when we're talking about like AA for alcoholics, like it's not like, oh, I've been to AA, and it's like, yeah, me too, bro. You know, like it's like not even no one even blinks twice about it. Whereas going home polishing off a bottle of wine every night is not good for you physically and mentally, but it's socially acceptable. Like no one really, you can't be criticized for that. If anything, some people probably think you're cool for doing that. You know, it can be, it's not.
Depends where you come from. Yep. Yep.
I mean, again, circle of influence, massive for me. As soon as I stepped out the circle where that kind of behavior, and I started hanging around people who I wanted to be and knew that I could be, just change, you know, if it's the same old meme, and I love this meme, if you hang around 5 idiots, you'll become the 6th idiot. If you hang around 5 people who are successful, you'll be the 6th person that's successful. And it's so true. If you hang around 5 other people that, you know, smoke ice, then it's probably more likely that you're going to as well. If you walk away and go and hang out with people that aren't doing that, then probably they'll be a little daily reminder to you that you can actually live without it. And, you know, they probably have a higher standard of what they expect of you as a friend and someone that they respect as well, that they can hold you to. And that's what we need, you know. We need people around us to call us out on their own bullshit, but not do it from a place of criticism. You know, it's like, hey, I've known you for a long time, and this kind of behavior is not your best self, you know, and it's not, and you know it. It's just, you're not going to come, you know, you're not going to come out and openly say that because of the stigma that this drug has. It's going to be like, you know, that needs to change as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. We are definitely conditioned by the company we keep. And I don't know anyone that's woken up one morning and said, you know, I think I'm going to be an addict today. I'm going to go smoke some ice and I'm going to become, you know, a raging addict. It's just not how it happens. In saying that, obviously, you did lose a lot. When we were talking about briefly about, obviously, you had a business, all the rest of it, a lot of people would have looked in at your life, probably envied it from, you know, several different standpoints. The people that you were taking with, obviously, your close-knit, you know, group of friends, were they of similar stature? Were they all, you know, what I would probably class as, you know, middle class and, you know, reputable members of society and owning their own businesses? And so they all were as well.
They all were as well. And that's why, to me, it seems so acceptable for me. You know, if someone else that I held in high esteem or respect was doing that next to me, then it didn't mean that it wasn't a, you know, if I went to a bus stop, you know, and someone just pulled up and pulled it, like, it wouldn't have been the same. Like, I wouldn't have been like, hey, dude, give me some of that, you know, like I would have probably been judged him for whatever they're doing. And, you know, whereas when it's introduced from, you know, someone in your circle of influence or someone you grew up with, or you have a, you know, friend, someone that you've known for a long time, it takes away, you know, probably the thought of you questioning whether this is something that you want to do or not.
Understood.
And we don't know the extent of what we were doing when we first started it either. Like, you don't realize that it's going to go down the road over 5 years and you're going to lose everything, because I'm sure if you had known that, and you could look into a crystal ball at the time, you would have made a very different decision about whether that's something you wanted to start doing. Or even if you did it once, you might be like, look, I know where that road goes. I'm not going to continue that. But you don't know where that road goes until you go walking down the road. So that's why I want to just allow yourself to just forgive yourself for being human and wanting to try something that's been socially accepted around you, or it's like, you haven't really looked at the total effect that could have long term, on your life, on your physical and mental health, and the people around you. It's physical and mental health. Obviously, like you said, becoming aggressive, becoming, shut down and recluse. You're talking about like depression, anxiety, all the byproduct mental health stuff of like, being a user and coming up and down like a yo-yo. It's all there. You know what I mean? Like no one around you can trust you. You probably like turned into someone that probably they wouldn't trust with money, or they wouldn't leave their daughter with you to take to kindy because, they wouldn't. But in normal sober person, they absolutely would. So it's more so realizing that it's not you and doesn't have to be you forever. It's a journey. And along this journey, we learn lessons. The only way we learn lessons through pain. We need to walk down those roads in order to cause ourselves pain for us to have the awareness to be like, hey, that's not something I want to do. Okay, cool. So now we just need to get back down the road to where you were before. And I suppose if you don't have the circle of influence around you and the necessary skills and knowledge and tools to be able to do that, then that's when you need to, be brave enough to reach out for help. And it's brave. Don't you worry. It's very brave. And for the people that are on the other side, it's brave because, it's going to come from a heap of criticism from the people around you that's who they know. Even 2 years later, people were like, oh, you try this, Rob. I'll be like, no. And they're like, why? You used to do this all the time and stuff. And they were like, yeah, but I just want better for myself. It's a no from me. And it still made me think, oh, if I just did it, would they like me more and I fit in, whatever. Like, it's just, we're doing it for connection. We're doing it to fit in with our friends and family. We think that it's cool, but it has a really negative long-term effect. It will take everything at the end. You'll lose everything. It's guaranteed.
It does. With your friends that were in similar situations, have you watched them lose everything as well? Like, has it that ripple effect, been evident in their lives as well as your own?
Yeah, you watch bits and pieces. A lot of those people I'm not friends with on social media and stuff anymore.
Obviously, for obvious reasons.
Choice. Yeah. It's a choice of mine to step away, and I don't really. I know that they know why. It's not because they're a bad person. I wouldn't have never been friend or in relationship with someone who's a bad person. But at that time, the behavior, for me, I had to step away. I had to choose me over everything. Because at the end of the day, I was the only person that was able to make that choice. No one could have made that choice for me. I just had to one day just be like, right, this is it. Like, if you're going to create something different, it's now, bro. This is this is it. I actually chose to get divorced, and through the divorce process, that's when I lost everything. So I didn't actually lose everything before then. But it obviously done its damage.
That's
what I mean?
What led to it. Yeah.
That's what led to it. And me making that choice and stepping away from that relationship is what caused the divorce. And then through the divorce process, the rest just come tumbling down. That foundation of how it was all built and who it was built with had to come falling down. When I was in the situation, it was horrible. I would have done everything to take it all back. Now coming out the other side, I can absolutely see, that, well, hindsight at the time would have been a wonderful thing, but you can't see when you're in it that there's so much better to come. Looking back on that, it was actually a really horrible time in my life, and I thought it was great. I thought I was killing life. I thought no one noticed. I thought I was on top of the world. When true honesty, like at the level that I'm at now, I can look back and be like, oh, wow, like you were so stupid, Rob, like you were just, but again, the level of forgiveness for being human, like I'm just working with that at the moment and coming on and speaking my truth as part of that process to just forgive myself for not being the best version of me and just getting caught up in something that I didn't really know what the final outcome would be. But, you know, because I think if everyone knew, they wouldn't choose that, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one would choose that knowingly, especially the consequences that are entailed with it all, coupled with, you know, the situations that it actually puts them in. I mean, I think you're quite lucky in the sense that you didn't have a lot of that criminality or bottom end, you know, criminality with the drug scene incorporated into your story. So, you know, it's somewhat you were saved per se from parts of that. But still, the stereotypical bad boy and the relationships you would have had around that in terms of how it then, you know, the ripple effect with your own wife and everything, it's detrimental. It does destroy lives. No matter where you are in society, when you are on this drug, it is not going to end pretty. It will end in disaster. And I don't know one single story in which someone's going to sit here and, you know, or apart from people who are in active addiction, who actually love their drug and don't want to give it up, that will actually say, well, no, in all honesty, this is something that's right for me and this is what I want to do and what I need to do. Because it's just not. It robs you of so many things, as you already know. It is, it is detrimental. And with your rebuilding of your life again, Rob, it obviously it's taken a long time. I know you've been clean for some time now, but in saying that, how did you start? Like, when you realize that this is where it's at and what I've been through and I've lost everything, obviously from several different avenues in terms of mainly your behavior though, how do you then rebuild that? Like, where do you go? I mean, I know I went to rehab, which took, you know, over 7 months to get in, all things like that. Obviously being, you lost your business as well. So you probably don't have the money behind you to be able to enter, you know, addiction or rehabilitation or anything like that anymore. So how did you get clean then? Where did you go from there?
I just reached out and went and seen a psychologist. You can actually get like free sessions, like as part of a GP. I didn't do that. I did have some money left over and did pay for sessions, but it took me about maybe the 4th psychologist I went and seen that I actually could build some rapport with. Funnily enough, she was an ex-bikies president's wife who would actually and, you know, it was great because whatever stories that I told her that I'd done, she'd heard it all before. Like, it didn't shock her. Like, she was able to hold that space for me and call me out on my own bullshit. And it was a lovely relationship. I mean, I haven't seen her for maybe a couple of years now, but it turned into a weekly, fortnightly visit. And we ended up friends, you know, we ended up someone who I would go in and just have a normal conversation with. But it took me reaching out and getting professional help to just understand why I chose to use recreational drugs to begin with, and that as a form of escapism to not deal with the trauma and pain of my son's death and stuff like that. So it was nice to undo all of that and sit with someone and just unpack it all, you know, and understand it for what it is. Again, you know, forgive yourself for what you didn't know. Like, I didn't grow up knowing these skills. I had to go out and learn them. And because they work so well for me, because these methods work so well, that's what led me into doing coaching and going and actually actively learning how to help others do that. Because if it could assist me, then I could help others as well. And I suppose I've always been that kind of person. I've worked as a PT. I was in the military for 10 years. You've always taken on roles that would be responsible for not only protecting people, but helping people as well, you know, and being that person. I've always taken on that role. And I love that part of myself, you know, that you're able to do that. And part of this as well is also stepping up into a leadership position where, you know, you are happy to guide and lead other people to get from where they might be now to where you are. And that's all it is. It's passing on the skills and knowledge and tools that I had to go and spend fucking $100,000 to learn. Like, it's, you know, that's all it is. Now I know I have the tools, I have the resources, I have the knowledge to be able to assist people. So why would you hold on to that and not want to actively assist people? But it takes standing up in front of people and telling them about some deep, dark secrets that people, and the risk of some people that don't know this part of me, choosing to not continue a relationship with me. That's the risk, you know. But to be honest, I just don't care anymore. Like, I'm not here to please other people. I'm here to own my truth and step into that leadership role. And I want to be in a position to help people and assist people. So part of that is, you know, being real and that level of authenticity, you know, like I said, I'm going to attract people that resonate with my story, you know, and I might not be for everybody, and I don't want to be for everybody. I only have a certain amount of hours in a day, but you know, the people it does resonate with, like, you can now step into that role by owning your own truth and having that level of authenticity and just be like, hey, I've been there. And as much as people from the outside wouldn't have known, you know, it was actually going on why you thought that I was killing life. You know what I mean? Which is why I suppose it's allowed to continue in society, because people can, you know, function almost normally, but I suppose after the years it does take its toll. Like, it will catch up with you. It certainly did with me. And like you said, the years afterwards, I love that you said that, because I didn't know that. I thought it was me just getting old. It took years for me to get my natural energy levels back, like just to get my sleep patterns back, for me to not be addicted to porn, you know, and want to be picking that up every 5 minutes. Like, it took a lot, you know, and I was wondering why you had a little bit of, not dysfunction down there, but things weren't functioning. You know what I mean? It's just like, why is this? Like, must be just lots of, and really all it was the years it took my body to recover from, you know, using ice. It's as simple as that. And I just didn't know it at the time. The education's not there. I certainly didn't go to my GP and say, can you take my bloods every 6 months because I used to be an ice addict? Like, you wouldn't. I've never had that conversation with my GP. That's what needs to change, you know, so we can actually see and have people speak about where they ended up, and people can then work out whether that's a road they want to walk down, or they want to learn from someone else's mistakes and start heading back to that better version of themselves now before it gets to rock bottom, you know?
Yeah. Funnily enough, it is the sort of conversation that we do need to have with our GPs, but once again, because the societal norms and just the stigma associated with it, we don't take that opportunity. There is a lot going on in your blood work and your brain chemistry when, you know, this sort of stuff, you have done this stuff to yourself, that a doctor has the ability to outline and to be able to get you, you know, supplements or extra help and all that sort of stuff to be able to help you on track and getting back to you sooner. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Rob. I really appreciate it. You've been fantastic in terms of just, you know, outlining, you know, exactly that it's not just something that discriminates. It does affect anyone in any different, you know, sector in life. A lot of people hide it. It's not just you know, the sensationalized people that we see in the media that are low socioeconomic, although there is a lot of them that are on it. But that doesn't, you know, it's not a correct snapshot of, you know, the actual use of ice in Australia. And more to the point, it's without actually outlining it and talking about it in a way and such that we do, you're not going to be able to combat the ability and get that awareness out there so that people understand it, so they know how to interact with it, so they can get the help for either a loved one or for people they know, as well as providing the education to everyone as well. So thank you. Once again, if anyone is having problems with ice addiction, whether it be for yourself, for a loved one, or for someone you know, or even if it's just to get some education around the actual ice itself. We have some amazing programs at AAIC that actually come out and talk to people in schools and etc. If anyone is needing family support, the number to call is 04818 44555. That number is 04818 44555. And once again, if you are having trouble with it, we have the 1-800 hotline, which is 1-800 666 423. Again, that is 1-800 666 423. So thank you very much for your time tonight, and appreciate it. And any questions people can ask later on and I can answer them. But thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.